Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching episode 7 of Rings of Power, and this was very much a recovery episode from the end of last one. Obviously, Mount Doom erupted, and that was like the big penultimate climax of the entire series. I think we have one episode left of this season. And yeah, a lot of this was more of like catch up to the other plot lines, but also we still got a decent amount of the Southlands. So here's basically where things stand. So in the Southlands, of course, Galadriel finds what's his name, Theo, and they're walking around, and basically a lot of this episode for their plot line is them thinking other people are dead, and some of it is characters that we know can't be dead. So for example, Isildur's father, he thinks that Isildur's dead, and to be fair, we don't actually see Isildur this episode, but obviously, you know, he's alive, you know, for Lord of the Rings to happen. So you know, as far as like where Isildur is, who knows, maybe he got captured. They haven't really revealed that yet, but you know, probably next episode we're gonna actually get to figure that out. But Galadriel heads towards the Southland camp, and Isildur's dad is all like, you know, because he thinks his son is dead, so he's like, let's just leave this place. I hate this place. We should have never come here. This was a stupid idea. And so he's basically turned his back on Galadriel's whole mission entirely. And even Galadriel herself is kind of blaming herself on all this, right? Like, you know, we came here to save the Southland people, and now the Southlands are lost. It's over. So we failed completely. Even the queen is all blinded now. But despite being blind, she is actually now empowered. She's like, oh, I swear that Numenor is going to return, and we're going to take down our enemy because they started this, you know. And Galadriel's convinced that she's telling the truth, but obviously, you know, Isildur's dad is not really into this. And basically, so the Numenorians essentially leave, or at least most of them do. I think they said they left like one group of people behind to like help everyone resettle somewhere else. And they mentioned that they're going to a different land, and I don't know, you know, obviously I haven't read all the books, I haven't done all the research. I don't know if this new land they're going to is what will one day become Gondor or Rohan or whatever. But you know, it does seem like one of those kingdoms, or both of them, need to be formed at some point. And then we see the Eldar, right? Eldar and all the orcs, and basically they're like, oh, hail Eldar, king of the Southland, you know, and he's like, no, we're gonna rename it. And they're like, what should we call it? And they don't say the name, but on the screen they're like, the text changes from Southlands to Mordor, just for anyone who's like not getting it yet, you know. I am glad they didn't say, we'll call it Mordor, you know, like I'm glad they didn't actually say it, but yeah, it on screen was kind of funny. And then that's pretty much all we get from the Southlands. You know, the Numenorians are gone, or at least most of them are, and it's probably going to be revealed that Isildur is captured by the orcs or something, right? Because obviously he has to be somewhere. So meanwhile, let's go to the Harfoots. We finally get a catch up with them, and basically they reach the location they were trying to get to, except everything's been burnt down. And I guess this is supposed to be some of the debris from Mount Doom has like landed like miles and miles away, which I'm pretty sure volcanoes actually do that, right? Like when they shoot out like these giant volcanic rocks, like they actually do land real far away. So I think that's what this is supposed to be, because they get there and a lot of the stuff they were, you know, all the trees and the vegetation, it's all burnt up, it's all destroyed. And so the stranger, the Comet Man, he goes to one of the trees and he's doing all his magic stuff, and of course something goes wrong where like a tree branch almost hits someone, and you know, that causes them to say, hey guy, you got to get out of here, you're just too dangerous, you know. And this is kind of like the running thing with him, you know. It's like he's trying to do good, but because he's not being careful with it, or other people don't understand what he's doing, someone almost gets hurt. That happened last time we saw him with the ice, right? So, you know, once again, he's trying to heal the trees, and of course he does, right? Like they wake up the next morning and everything's perfect and great, and it's like, oh, he did heal all the trees, you know. So he does not seem to be a malicious person at all, right? Like you know, I was like, maybe he's Sauron, but no, he's definitely one of the wizards, right? Anyway, so he healed all the trees, but then we see the trio of people in white robes, and I thought that these were elves last time, but no, I don't think they're supposed to be elves. So it's these three ladies. One of them has really short hair, and they got these like crazy looking eyes, like these crazy pale blue eyes, you know. And these ones are obviously being set up to be like real sinister and evil, like. You know, and just like everyone else in this show, it's always like, is this Sauron? Who knows? Maybe. But they've been looking for the Comet Man. They were at the crater where he was found, and they've basically been following him ever since. So they go and they find the tree where he had healed all the vegetation in this whole place. But the main Harfoot girl, she I guess she's trying to lure them away from him, and she like points them a different direction. But of course, what they end up doing is her dad ends up threatening them, saying like, all right, get away, get on out of here, you creepy looking people. And they end up catching the entire camp on fire. They like grab some fire ashes and they blow it into the air, and everything catches on fire. So these people are also some kind of magic. Now, you know, of course, it's like, oh, okay, so they're definitely Sauron, right? Maybe, right? You know, but that's like everyone in the show. Like, no, this person's Sauron. So I don't really know. I mean, they have something to do with Sauron. That seems pretty obvious, right? But they're looking for this Comet Man. So it's, you know, like always, it's always unclear. But they leave, and then the next morning, the main girl, Harfoot, and her friends, and a couple other people all try to go find the Comet Man, because they're like, okay, hey, we gotta warn him that there's some creepy weirdos looking for him, you know? And that's pretty much where we leave them at. Speaking of the Southlands and all the Sauron stuff, I did forget to mention that Halbrand was found wounded. And he's like in bed and he's all wounded, and he's like, oh man, this really hurts, it sucks. I don't think he's Sauron. Some people are like hard convinced that Halbrand is Sauron. I don't think so. You know, it just doesn't really add up for me, but you know, okay, whatever. And then next, of course, we get the Elrond of it all. So Elrond and what's his name, Durin, right? They're trying to convince the king to help them mine, and the king essentially says no, and so that kind of pisses everyone off. And so Elrond and Durin end up kind of secretly trying to mine themselves, and they end up finding a pretty big cache of this mithril stuff, right? And before they can continue to actually open it up and get anything, the dad shows up, and he's like, you know, yelling at the son, and they banish Elrond away. Right, which I guess makes sense, right? Like the king said no, you can't just do it anyways. But you know, they do see that the mithril will heal the leaves from that tree, basically meaning that the elves' lives will, you know, be restored, you know. And the interesting thing is that at the very end, the king's like still trying to seal this up, this thing that they opened. He tosses one of the leaves through the door, saying like, all right, seal this thing up, I don't ever want to hear about this again. And of course, we get our big ending stinger here, where the leaves are falling, and what do we see? We see the leaf burn up, and the camera pans up, and we see the Balrog. Now the Balrog's already awake, so you know what I mean. Like it's way down there, and it's like we know what's supposed to happen to this place. You know, we know that the Balrog's gonna, you know, all these people are gonna die. There's going to be like a goblin invasion at some point, you know, where the goblins kill everyone. You know, and now what is the sequence of these events? It's always been kind of unclear, because obviously in Fellowship, we see the goblins everywhere, and they're running and they're shooting arrows at everyone, and the Fellowship is running away. And then the goblins kind of summon the Balrog, or at the very least, they're like drumming and the Balrog shows up, you know. Now, how long had the Balrog just been hidden underneath the mountain, right? Like forever. So maybe they become aware of him, but he doesn't actually destroy everything until much later when the goblins show up. Who knows? Who knows exactly what the series of events is? But yeah, the Balrog's there, like we all thought he would be, and that seems to be what we're going to be dealing with in the next episode. You know, maybe they'll discover that he's there, and they'll be like, okay, we need to be able to dig some of this mithril out without, disturbing that guy so he doesn't try to come up here, Yeah, pretty interesting so far. This was definitely not like an action-packed episode like last one was, which makes sense, right? Like, they all have to regroup and regather and be like, okay, giant volcano just erupted. What do we do now? I suspect, because the Numenorians left, so I don't think we're going to get like another action scene with them, but I do suspect that next episode we're going to finally get some answers as to, first, who is Sauron in this show, and then second, who's the Comet Man. We're going to get a much clearer idea of what's going on there, because I would say that is like the most lingering of the plot threads, like Sauron, Comet Man, and these three people that are looking for the Comet Man. What exactly is going on? No one seems to know. So yeah, pretty interesting. I'm still invested. We got like one episode left. I think season 2 is already being filmed. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think my thing is the show, at the very least, it feels like it has a plan. It feels like they know exactly where they're going with all this. And so I don't mind episodes where it's okay to be like a slower episode where you're kind of just regrouping from a big event and then you're leading into the final episode. Like, that's fine, so we'll see what ends up happening. Are they gonna actually deal with this Balrog next episode? Like, they don't even have anyone who could fight it. Like, none of the wizards are here. So like, how would they even deal with the Balrog? I don't know. Anyways, let me know your thoughts about episode 7 of Rings of Power, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.